What I mean by that is what's unique about someone, what they have to offer their workplace, their clients, a world that's different than other people. So when I work with tech people, they often say, well, I'm able to translate technical stuff into non-technical concepts. That's not what makes you fabulous. But what is something you have to offer that no one else can offer?
If I asked you what makes you different, unique, could you answer immediately? Most people can't, because it's often the very thing that comes naturally to them. So they overlook it. And if you can't see it, you can't communicate it, which means you miss opportunities that should have been yours, whether that's a sale or a business building opportunity. Today, you're going to hear a conversation that I had with Kyle Elliott about what he calls your fabulousness, the qualities that make you distinct and valuable and memorable in the marketplace. Kyle started his side hustle on Fiverr, charging $5 to review resumes and write LinkedIn profile summaries. Today, he's a tech career coach and trusted confidant to Silicon Valley's top talent. He'll be sharing a straightforward way to discover your fabulousness. Another thing that popped up in our conversation that I've used for years is a simple way to keep real proof of your value at your fingertips for when you need it the most. Now let's jump into my conversation with Kyle Elliott. I'm Joan Posavy, and this is Side Hustle Hero. Well, Kyle, I understand one of your superpowers is to help your clients, and I quote, own their fabulousness. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is what's unique about someone, what they have to offer their workplace, their clients, a world that's different than other people. So when I work with tech people, they often say, well, I'm able to translate technical stuff into non-technical concepts. That's not what makes you fabulous. But what is something you have to offer that no one else can offer, very few people can offer? And then folks always want examples. And I say, if I share examples, then it's not fabulous. It has to be something that's unique or different about you that other people can't offer. I recently worked with a client and they worked in operations for a very technical company, but then every single person said, oh my goodness, you are so good at training. Usually when we're training people, it takes some weeks to onboard. When we put someone under you, it's a day or two and they're up to speed. And that was like their superpower. And everyone kept commenting on that. But nowhere was that in their resume. When I did interview prep with them, that was nowhere. It was the skill that they really had. And then they realized maybe I need a career in L&D or learning and development. This is an area I really succeed in. So these things that when you keep talking to people, other people recognize it.
Okay. So how can we do that? Give us a little mini crash course, if you would. How do we figure out what our own unique fabulousness is?
I think of a Venn diagram. There's two parts. One is, what are you noticing in yourself? And sometimes it helps to go back to your childhood. What before you felt like you had to have a job and monetize it were those things that you loved doing? For me, it was teaching. When I was in 4th or 5th grade, I asked for a huge, like 4-foot by 6-foot whiteboard. I asked for a lesson planner, a grade book. I loved teaching. And like I had my stuffed animals lined up on my bed and I loved teaching. It was like I would create worksheets for my parents on our like old computer and print them out. I had parent-teacher conferences. Like I loved teaching. And now people say, oh my goodness, Kyle, you are so good at teaching, coaching, pulling out the best in people. And that overlap is my ability to teach and coach people. So for you, I would, and each person listening, is say, like, what are those things as a child you loved before you felt like, okay, I have to monetize this? And now do people keep saying about you? I would do a mini 360, text a half dozen people, not in a group chat, and say, what makes me fabulous?
Right.
And then see what that overlap is and what people keep saying. And oftentimes clients are surprised, listeners are surprised, and they say these different people are all saying the same thing, and it's sometimes not what they expected.
Yes, I went through a similar exercise when I was involved in like a week-long intensive, and that was some of the homework that we had to do or prep ahead of time. Ask those people and get their written responses. And yeah, it's interesting to see the patterns in there that maybe you don't see in yourself.
Yeah, I think it's fabulous. It's fascinating. For me, I did it recently. I'll do it often. Not every time I do it with a client. I feel like my friends would get annoyed, but all 5 people said humorous last time I did it. And I was shocked. I said, oh, this is really interesting. But I do tell a lot of stories. People think I'm funny sometimes, not always, but it was so interesting, like having 5 different people say humorous and say, okay, there must be something here if all these people said this. And back when I was a kid, I was funny. I liked like playing games and making up dances. And
right.
Interesting to see these different nuggets as well and not feel like, okay, I need to always monetize this, but there's something in there if this keeps coming out from different folks who see me in different contexts. A tip I might give too is don't feel like you have to recreate the wheel. If you have performance reviews over the years, letters of recs, LinkedIn testimonials, go through. I call it a fabulousness file. So if you have like a collection of where people have said nice things about you, go through and you might notice a trend too. Now that we have ChatGPT or your favorite chatbot, you can even put it in there and say, hey, what's the trend that you notice among all these different things that people have said about me? And it can be really, really powerful. And you might uncover some new insights that you didn't recognize before.
And another actual use, now that you mentioned it, for that file, and I'm thinking a physical file or a box or somewhere where this is all kept, is those times, those weeks, those days where things are not quite going well, that have been particularly difficult. You can access that file, that box, and read some of that stuff. And it reminds you of your value, that your work counts, that you really are making a difference.
Yes. One of my colleagues, Jamie, calls it a smile file. She's like, when I need a style, I'll just go through it. And I like it physical. I have so many cards from clients. And when I go through there, it's interesting. Like one of the words I would have never used for myself was cheerleader. But then clients kept saying, Kyle's a cheerleader. He's cheering me on. So now I've embraced more of that cheerleader. And it can be interesting, that kind of words. People can give you new words to describe yourself. And if you want new clients, you could say, hey, what words attracted you to me? Or what was the pain point? So don't feel like you always have to come up with stuff yourself.
Yeah, it just speak from the heart, really, to get those answers. So to discover your fabulousness, Kyle suggests looking in two places. One is going within and asking yourself, what did I love to do before needing a job and having to monetize something? And then secondly, look outward. Reach out to a handful of people to ask what they perceive as your uniqueness, your fabulousness. I've done this myself more than once, and one thing that matters is who you ask. Make sure there are people who genuinely want you to win, people you trust who will give you an honest assessment from the perspective of wanting you to succeed. Also, Kyle mentioned his colleague's smile file, that collection of things that remind you of your value, that your work counts, that what you do matters. I have mine, and I've added to it over the years. And if you don't have one, I highly recommend starting one today. Because when you're building a side hustle, there will be times when things don't go as planned. You'll face setbacks. You may hear criticism. That's when this, what I call a PR kit or perspective restoration kit, is there for you to reach for. Because when something negative happens, it's easy to focus on it so much that it starts to feel like your whole world. And yes, a single moment can feel incredibly discouraging or disappointing, but it isn't your whole truth. All these other things that the PR kit will remind you of are true also. There are clients, customers, friends, family who support you and are cheering you on. Just to be clear, it's a physical box or a folder or an envelope that you create that contains items that remind you of your uniqueness and or value. Testimonials, thank you notes, emails or messages you've printed out, wins, any reminders of positive impact. Because when something goes wrong, it's easy to catastrophize, to believe that this single negative event defines everything about you. It doesn't. So whenever you need it, pull out your smile file or PR kit. It'll help you put things into context, and it'll help you in addressing whatever the issue is in the moment in a more positive frame of mind. The key is to reach for it when you need it, to put things back into proper perspective. When I asked Kyle this next question, I already had a hunch what the answer would be, but I wanted to hear it from his perspective. I asked him what percentage of his clients already have a side hustle, and then how many want one.
Probably 10 to 20% at least have some sort of side hustle. I work with senior managers and executives. And when I think of side hustle, sometimes it could just be something on Etsy. Sometimes they're consulting. I'm seeing more people doing fractional work. So instead of going in and working 40 hours a week, maybe 10 or 20 hours a week, they're serving in an HR capacity, a marketing capacity, a sales capacity. So side hustles are looking different than they used to.
Okay, so more closely aligned with what they're doing for their full-time work then.
Exactly. And then people
Yeah.
are saying, oh, I didn't know I could get paid for this. I can now go do this outside of this. And sometimes they proactively go seek it out. Other times, someone will just reach out and say, hey, are you interested in doing this? Or when they want to
Hmm.
leave their full-time employer, they say, hey, will you actually stick around and maybe do some consulting or advisory services for us? So if you add in that, probably 30 or
Hmm.
40% of my clients.
Hmm. And I'm finding that those employees, provided they've got a good working relationship with their employers, in a lot of cases, the employers are okay with that. Sometimes there's this agreement that you're going to do that same work, but not in the same industry.
Exactly.
Is that what you're seeing too?
I am seeing that, yeah, as long as it's not in the same industry or for a specific list of competitors. Some of my clients have sent me their contracts, and there's maybe 4 or 5 companies where they're not allowed to do work
Hmm.
for those specific ones, but a lot of people are open to
Right.
you working for several companies as long as it's not a direct competitor. I'm not a lawyer, but
Right.
often that's the
Yeah.
case. It's just not for very specific competitors.
You mentioned 10 to 20% would have side hustles that your existing clients. How many of your clients do you think would want to have a side hustle or have talked about it, but actually haven't started one?
All of them, almost all of them want to. I mean, I think it's expensive right now to survive, to live,
Yeah.
and a lot of
Yeah.
them want another job to be able to do some sort of side hustle, whether it's a side business directly related to what they're doing. A lot of them have other interests too. I mostly
Yeah.
work with people in tech, but they're like, well, I want to do interior design. I want to do art. I want to do something more creative often.
Yes.
A lot of my clients are very technical, so they have these other creative outlets they want to do. Sometimes it's a lot of clients actually are interested in doing like Airbnb or rental properties. So when I think of side hustle, I think it could be a lot of different ways to do something on the side. Maybe they want to be an author or have some sort of, I don't like the word passive income, but more passive
Yes.
sort of income.
Yeah. And I'm finding the reasons for it too. It's not, yes, in a lot of cases it's money, but also it can be about having this other thing on the side if their current full-time
Hmm.
job goes south, that they
Yeah.
are making decisions from this position of power rather than
Yeah.
desperation, really.
Yes. And
Yeah.
having, especially in tech, where we just saw recently 16,000 layoffs at Amazon. They're like,
Right?
okay, I
Yeah.
have this other outlet, I have a backup. For some people, it's more creativity they want to have, or maybe they just want to do something different. Maybe they're using a
Hmm.
certain skill set, and then they say, oh, there's this other skill set I'm not using. Maybe I want to coach on the side or consult or advise, or my job doesn't leverage marketing, and I used to
Hmm.
do product marketing. I want to consult there outside of work.
And this one lawyer I heard about on this show, what she really wanted to be doing is baking and selling croissants. So there you go. To your point.
Amazing. And I think that's what's so interesting about side hustles. It allows you to do something. And some side hustles become full time, but for a lot of people, it can just be an outlet for
Hmm.
whatever their piques their interest.
Yeah. And if it takes off, fabulous.
Yeah.
Well, what's the best way for our listeners to connect with you, Kyle?
Yeah, my website, caffeinatedkyle.com, or LinkedIn, Kyle Elliott with 2 L's and 2 T's.
Great. Make sure we drop that link in the show notes.
Thank you.
So what's your best tip, Kyle, to inspire others to start or grow their side hustle dream?
I would suggest starting small. Don't feel like you have to create a business overnight, but is it offering your services to a friend, a family member, posting on Facebook that you have an opening for one client this month? I would start small and not feel like you have to create a business overnight, because if you take one step every day, that's how you create a business.
That's so true. One step at a time. And as you keep working at it, at some point you turn around and you look from where you started and you think, wow, I really have covered some distance here.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kyle, for being today's side hustle hero.
Thanks for having me.
So if you've been wanting to start a side hustle but haven't yet, you're clearly not alone. And if you're already working on one, congratulations. If you're not sure what your fabulousness is, consider reaching out to trusted friends, family, and colleagues to ask what they see as your uniqueness. And if you want to be a little bit more adventurous, you might also ask them, what are 3 things that they perceive as your weaknesses that could keep you from reaching your goals? My experience tells me that much of what they'll share with you, deep down, you already know, you already suspected. But hearing them from someone else can give you the clarity and motivation to strengthen those areas. And by extension, strengthen your side hustle as well. Well, that's a wrap for today. If our chats are sparking your entrepreneurial spirit and providing valuable insights, consider showing your support by visiting sidehustlehero.com/support. That's where you can shoot me a virtual coffee. It's a real thing and a fun way to give the show a caffeinated thumbs up. Thank you so much. In the episode description, you'll find links to Kyle's website, caffeinatedkyle.com, his LinkedIn profile, as well as our full show notes, which live at our website, sidehustlehero.com. If you're enjoying what you're seeing in this podcast, it would be so appreciated if you would take a moment and add your comment, share the episode, and please subscribe. It'll let others know that there's valuable content here to help them start and grow their side hustle. Thanks for watching, and hustle on.